Let's start rigging bow and jaw. We'll create the basic skeleton without any automations, so it will be pretty standard stuff. The props are hidden in this scene, and I'll be focusing on the bare body first, and then attaching the props and clothing will be easy. If you want to follow along with me, please go to academy.cgdive.com, go to courses, click on the Ogre course, click on Start File Download, and here you'll be able to download the Start Blend file for free. Even though I'm releasing the course on YouTube for free, the full release will take a while, so if you want to get the full course right away, or you just want to support me, please buy the course here. I also believe that the learning experience here on academy.cgdive.com is much better. You won't see any ads, and there are no distractions. And also, you can ask me a question anytime you get stuck. Whereas on YouTube, I may not be able to reply to everybody. Okay, so you can buy the course, or you can get a subscription, which gives you access to the whole site. And also check out addons.cgdive.com. This is another CGDive project where we organize Blender add-ons in nice categories. You'll find both free and paid add-ons from all over the web. And the site just makes it easy to discover the exact Blender add-on or tool that you need. So let's save ourselves some time and use the human metarig as a base for this guy. So Shift-A, armature, and choose human metarig. Not the basic one, because the basic one doesn't have any fingers. Okay, this metarig has fingers for one thing, and it also has a face. We kind of want a face rig. We want two of them actually, but we'll worry about that later, after we're done with the whole body. So for now, I'll simply delete the face. So slash to isolate the metarig, go to edit mode, and now I want to get rid of the face. It's best to hide these head bones first. Just press H. Then I can box select over the face bones and press delete and choose bones. Then press Alt H to unhide the head. Okay, I'll go to object mode, slash to go out of local mode. And now for this character, the heads, the two heads are asymmetrical, but the rest of the body is actually perfectly symmetrical. So we can make use, if I select the armature and go to pose mode, actually edit mode, we can make use of the X-axis mirror option over here. So turn it on. In the armature panel, turn on in front, and we can start aligning the bones. But here I'm going to do some things a little bit different. One, I'm going to delete this bone here, the breast bone, because later we are going to create much more sophisticated controls for the breast muscles. So these bones I'm not going to need, so I'm going to delete them. And I'm also going to delete the pelvis bones. These pelvis bones are great when you use automatic weights. They help this weighting algorithm to do a better job, but with this character we're going to be painting weights manually a lot. And basically, because in pose mode these bones do not have the control option, that means that they're simply parented to this spine bone and they move together with it. So when you paint weights, the pelvis area will be controlled by the spine bones and by the pelvis bones, and that will just complicate the weight painting process. Instead of painting just one bone, we'll have to paint 3 bones. So in edit mode, I'm going to delete this bone. And let's start aligning the limbs. I'm going to start from the arm, move it into place and make it bigger. Currently I'm in global transformation and pivot point is set to bounding box. I find these settings very suitable for this initial phase. Later I'll probably switch to individual origins. Okay, over here in the shoulder area, there's this point where the clavicle is connected and also the scapula on the back. The head of this bone is also connected in the same area, but it sits a little bit below the connection of the collarbone and the scapula. So something like this will be good in my opinion. Let's align the elbow from the top view, and actually I can select this whole lower arm with the fingers and everything and move it a little bit in the y-axis. The elbow I want to point a little bit more towards the elbow, and then I'm going to switch to back view enable wireframe to see things better. Align this elbow to the actual elbow area. Maybe in stick mode it will be easier to see. This is the wrist. I'm going to align it with the wrist of the character. One thing I don't really like is that the whole arm is not straight currently. It has a little bit of a bend like this. I want it to be more straight, something like this. So I'm going to move the elbow a little bit up and the head of the upper arm a little bit down. This wrist joint a little bit down as well. And I think that will be good enough. The position of the joints are extremely important. They can really make or break the deformation of your character. They are pretty much as important as the weight painting of the character. But the cool thing with Rigify is that even after we generate the rig, if something does not behave quite well, we can always go back to the metarig, tweak these positions a little bit, generate the rig again, and then test our deformations again. And I think in this tutorial we are going to do this a couple of times. Okay, I'm going to work on the fingers later, and now I'm going to try to align the clavicle. I want to switch to face snapping. Move one end of the clavicle and hold control over this area, and then the other end, and again hold control over this area which I mentioned earlier, where the clavicle and the scapula and everything connects. So this is more or less a good positioning, but as you know, I like to position the clavicle a little bit beneath the skin, something like that. Let's switch to stick mode and turn on in front again. Okay, let's work on the fingers now. They're probably going to be the most time-consuming thing in this part. I'm going to switch to volume snapping this time. And then I'll start selecting the fingers, moving them, and then holding control to snap them to the volume of the area where I want to move them to. This didn't work. The key with volume snapping and with any snapping is that Blender considers the position of your cursor, not of the object that you're moving. So if I keep my cursor close to this joint and then press G and then hold control, then snapping will work. I'm repositioning the bones a little bit without snapping. I'm going to move the hand bone just a little bit, and then I'm going to hide it with H. Now I'm going to position the palm bones. Again, I'm holding control to snap them. The palm bone and the finger bones can be disconnected over here. I'm going to try to move them as one whole. So I'm just going to box select over this connection of bones and then move them and hold control. Okay, I'll do the same thing for the rest of the fingers. The fingers seem to be aligned inside the volume of the fingers and palm, which is good. From the side view, I can see that these bones should be probably moved a little bit further up, and these palm bones as well. The tips of the finger are kind of snapped to the nail. I want them to be more inside the flesh of the finger, so I'm going to fix that in side view. If you're lost, you can always select one of the fingers with L and press Shift H to hide everything else. Alt H to unhide. I think we're going to have more work with the alignment of the fingers later, but for now that is good enough. Let's align the legs next. Crop them and scale them down a little bit. Align the knee joint with the knee. From the side view, I would say it needs to be a little bit further up. I'm going to move the whole leg a little bit in the Y direction. Here I'm trying to imagine where the actual pelvis would be, and I'm going to move the head of the upper bone accordingly. Don't forget the very slight bend in the knee. For the ankle, I have modeled this little bump, and I'm just going to align this bone with that bump. This small bone that is actually called the toe, I'm going to leave it this size. It's fairly short. And then I'm going to look from the bottom, rotate it a little bit, align it just behind the fingers, and then I'm actually going to scale it up a little bit. I think something like that will be good. For the fingers, I'd like to have very simple single bone controls. So I'm going to go to bottom view again. With this toe bone selected, I'm going to Shift D, duplicate it over to the thumb, go to pose mode, and before I forget, I'm going to set the rig type as super copy. And then back to edit mode, I'm going to make it a little bit longer. Duplicate one more bone for the next finger, and so on until I have one bone for each finger. Select all of them and parent them to the toe with keep offset. Then I'm going to select all of them, edit, patcher name, bones, and set a new name, and I'm going to call them toes.l. You can give them more descriptive names if you like, but for me that's enough. And do not forget the heel bone, make it about as wide as the foot. From side view, align it with the heel, and that's looking okay. Let's align the spine now. Select the whole spine with L, move it further inside the body, maybe not at the very center of the body, but more towards the center, something like that. Now I'm going to select all of the arm bones on both sides and press H to hide them. Select the whole spine and make it a little bit longer. I'm going to move it down in the Z direction and make it a little bit bigger still. This is probably too far down, so I'm going to move it up a little bit. And then I'm going to align it with the curvature of my character. And also I'm trying to make sure that each separation of the bones is about the same length. Okay, and now we come to the head. The head is not going to be symmetrical, so I'm going to make sure that X-axis mirror is off. And then select the whole head. I'm going to switch to octahedral. And I'm going to align it with jaw. One thing I don't like in the pre-built metarig is that the head is called spine. So I'm going to select this head and press F2 and name it head jaw. The neck portion of the head can also be renamed, so I'm going to press F2 for the bottom part of the neck and call it neck and copy the name. And then select the second part of the neck and F2, paste the name, and that will give it the suffix of 001. Now I'm going to copy the whole head over to bow, and then I can start aligning the heads. But one thing that I want to change right away for Joe's head, or rather for the neck, is that because his neck is very short, we don't need two neck separations. So I can select the middle of the neck and press Ctrl X, and that will dissolve these two bones into one. If I go to pose mode and check the rig type, it's still there, so everything is okay. Okay, in edit mode, I'm going to hide Bo's head, and then from the side view, I'm going to align these bones. This bone is especially important. It's going to become the pivot point on which the whole head rotates. And I think somewhere around here is a good placement, but you know, if it's wrong, we can fix it later. Alt H to unhide everything. Now I'm going to hide Joe's head and focus on Bo. If I look from the left orthographic view, I'm going to align this again as the pivot of the head, extend this bone to cover the whole head. This bone can be moved a little bit up to align well with the neck. Alt H to unhide everything, and I think that's going to work. Parenting seems to be okay. Actually, I can rename this neck Joe, and this will be neck Bo. Okay, Bo also has a ponytail, so let's handle that from the side view. In object mode, I'm going to select the whole character, go to edit mode, select this edge loop over here, shift S, cursor to selected, and then go back to the armature, edit mode, shift A to create a new bone, switch to individual origins, scale it down quite a bit from the side view. I'm going to align it, subdivide it maybe into 3 bones. 3 wasn't quite enough, so 1 more subdivision. Parent this to bow's head, keep offset, and set the rig type to copy chain. Okay, with that I'm ready to generate the rig and test it quickly. And of course we got an error. If you like, you can pause here and try to figure out what the error was. And of course it was our favorite bone position is this joint error. We can fix that really quickly. It has to do with the head, or the heads I should say. They have the connect chain on from the pre-built metric, so we need to remove that. And actually before I generate, I want to do something else. Currently my metarig is just called metarig, which is not very descriptive. Let's call it Ogre Rig Metarig. I'm going to copy that name, go to advanced options, and for rig name, I'm going to paste it in here and change it to generated. Okay, now when I click generate, my rig did generate, and also it is automatically named Ogre Rig Generated. Let's hide the metarig. Select the character, shift select the armature, control P, automatic weights. Go to pose mode. And it seems that the automatic weights were successful. Now I'm quickly testing some of the main functions of the rig. And I would say everything is fine, except that we have very bad deformations in the chest area, especially at extreme poses. And also the legs control way too much of the belly, but we are going to be fixing that very soon. So there are just 2 things that I want to address here before we move to the next chapter. The first is that this IK handle is slanted a little bit. It is not well aligned with the actual hand geometry. That won't be a big problem. You can work that way. But if I can, I prefer to fix that. And I can. It won't be difficult. So just unhide the metarig, switch to the metarig, go to pose mode, select the arm, rig type options, and for rotation axis choose X manual. Do the same for the other arm, and that will fix the problem. If you don't understand these options, please watch the manual. Now I can regenerate the rig, and you'll see that the IK handle is now perfectly aligned with the hand geometry. And another thing that I want to fix really quickly is if I move the heads now, aside from the bad deformations in the cheeks, all these eyes and teeth that we have do not move with the head. When we work on the face later, we're going to attach these props to the actual face, but for now let's just quickly attach them to the head bone. So I'm going to hide the character, shift select all of these body parts, shift select the rig, go to pose mode, select the head bone, control P and choose bone. And now rotating the bone will move these eyes and everything. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Just parent them to the other head bone. Okay, now I'm going to unhide the character and try moving the head, and the eyes and everything moves with the head. Okay, we are done with the basic rig. In the next parts, we are going to start checking the deformations that this rig produces, and whenever we find an issue, we're going to try to address it using different techniques. One of the most basic techniques will be weight painting. Things that cannot be fixed with weight painting, we are going to try to address by adding new bones to the rig and automating them so that we don't have to move each of these adjustment bones one by one. And if even that fails, then we can explore other techniques like driven shape keys and so on. That's it for this chapter. Please like, subscribe, and check out our other projects, academy.cgdive.com and addons.cgdive.com.